Good evening. My name is Hilik, and my glasses are broken, so sorry if I can see so well. Anyway, I don't have any notes or anything to talk about it, but I want to talk to you tonight about Corona. But before Corona, I want to make a little speech with no note or teleprinter. From what I study and what I know about Bible, the first portion of the Bible is creation. In the creation, it described the plan that God did to create us. And what was the plan? It contained work for 6 days. In the first day, for example, first he created the sky and earth, and the earth was desolated totally, and was darkness upon the earth, and um, there were no water, or it was a bad thing, really. So what he did, he right away said, "Well, it's better that I create some." Actually, in that creation, what was, it was water around the world, and there were water below the earth. There were water above the earth, so it's kind of actually was a mess, very mess. So God didn't like it, and He came and separated the waters below and called them oceans, and water above in the sky called them rain. That's what we see basically today. So there is water above and water below, and it did separate. And he saw, oh wow, not bad, huh? Looking good. He liked it. The third day, he created grass and all kind of trees, and trees with fruit, trees without a fruit, and kind of start basically creating heaven. It's created a Garden of Eve, we call it, and that was a beautiful garden. And God started, building the earth to look good. That was the third day. Then the fourth day, He created the sun and the moon and separated between the lights. So let the sun shine during the day and the moon shine during the night. There is a lot of discussion about that. Actually, God created two huge lights, meaning moon and sun, they had equal light. Then something happened that he changed his mind, and he said, no, better we separate it, because two kings cannot rule in the same country. So therefore, you cannot have two suns. People are going to be confused. So he changed the upper sun light, that we call it sun, and the other one, the other planet, we call it moon. That was actually the fourth day. The fifth day, and God liked it actually. Every day that God did something, He liked it. He said, Vayar Elohim Kitov. And God looked at it and He liked it. And He said, wow. Okay, kind of amazed what He created. The fifth day, God created kind of a SeaWorld actually, because He created the animals to be swimming in the ocean, created Taninim. Taninim is the, how do you call it, the large animal in the sea, like not shark, not, I don't remember the name, but you know what I'm talking about. And all the fish and all the creatures that go in underwater for miles, or depth of thousands of feet. and, uh, and God blessed them actually. His blessing was that they should just recreate themselves. He knew what he's doing actually, because if you look at it today, how many fish people eat every day around the world. I mean, that's got to be tremendous manufacturing to deliver so much edible food for human that later on is going to create. Okay, so his plan actually was perfectly done because he's God. God can do anything, correct? And of course, in the 6 days, he created other creatures on earth, on land. And he told Adam that later on he's going to create which one of them is to eat, meaning that's a kosher one that Jews eat kosher food, and which one not to eat. For example, not to eat pig, but to eat cow. And of course, after that, God got tired a little bit, in the 6th day, he also created Adam and Eve. And Adam he created on his own image. Meaning, basically, Adam was the second God. Because he looked like God, but he wasn't God. He was created by God. So his capacity of his brain worked exactly like supercomputer of God brain. But until now, every day God said, and it was. God said, and it was. God said, there shall be light, and it was light. It shall be darkness, and it was night. And shall be skies, and there were skies. Shall be water, was a water. Everything was done by order. And of course, after he created Adam and Eve on the same day, on the 6th day, God got tired a little bit. It's a lot of work to do in 6 days, And so he decided to rest on the 7th day, that is Sabbath. God totally rested. And of course, because God totally rested himself, he ordered his own creature to not to work on Sabbath. And Sabbath is basically from Hebrew word of a strike, not doing anything. Anything that God did during the week, he said, that's it, I'm tired, I'm going to rest, and everybody else shall rest like me. That's why the Jews are very, very strong on keeping Shabbat. With all the laws that later on he gave it to Moses when the Torah was given to Moses. So after all that, now that was actually his plan. And now we're getting to a section that God actually activating his plan. Meaning right now he just drew it in a map or whatever he was, or his computer, who knows, maybe his app, and now he, after the creation, he start kind of fixing it, like you're building a shell with nothing in it, and then you come and divide it to a living room and dining room and bedroom and bathroom and upper floor and lower floor and wine place and jacuzzi and pool and all this stuff. So basically what God did, all of a sudden, he became a gardener. He had to do something after all that work. And now he started actually implementing what he drew and what he planned. And of course, the first thing that he created was a garden that we call it Garden of Eve. And because Adam and Eve by then did not work, they're not obligated to work. Okay, so he created a garden for them to be happy. And in the garden, in the center of the garden, God created, actually installed by himself, with his own hand or whatever tools he used. On the middle of the garden, he created a tree by name Tree of Life. And somewhere else around the garden, he created another tree, and this tree had a very, very special name. The name of the tree was Tree of Knowledge, Good and Bad. Good and bad. Just listen to the story. It's getting funnier and much nicer to understand. So here's created the garden, and Adam and Eve, they were just, going around and looking at the delicious trees that God created with fruits and all the flowers and all the butterflies and all the beautiful, beautiful animal that God created for the Garden of Eve. So now God talked to Adam and said, eat the fruit of every tree that I created in this heaven, in this garden, except tree of a knowledge, good and bad. Now, why God did do that? Why he created something and then prohibited from Adam and Eve, his creation, his children, his make, to eat from it? There's a reason for it. So we know the story, what happened. The snake came to Eve and they talked, and Eve asked him what's going on and said, hey, watch it, don't eat from this tree of knowledge, good and bad. Of course, snake did not tell Eve about good and bad. He said, just don't eat from this tree of knowledge. And Eve heard it and looked at the tree, and it was beautiful, beautiful, delicious fruit. And while the snake was eating the fruit of a tree of knowledge, good and bad, he gave some of it to Eve. That's why mostly around the world, snake are hated, because snake is a snake. And it's compared actually to Eve, unfortunately, because that was the first connection between snake and human being called Eve. So when they're talking about a snaky, meaning a sneaky, like let's say Nancy Pelosi, basically they're talking about connection that was created between snake and Eve, because the snake did not tell the truth to Eve. He deceived basically Eve. And Eve ate from tree of the knowledge, good and bad. And when Adam saw that, he said, what is it? He said, wow, you must taste it, it's so delicious. Now, prior to eating from tree of a knowledge, good and bad, the brain of Adam was completely like God, meaning Adam did not know the difference between good and bad. What is good, what is bad? He just, never go to school, so he didn't know. So his brain was completely 100% like God. Now, where the damage came, when Adam ate from the tree of knowledge, good and bad, all of a sudden they realized, he and Eve, that they are totally nude. Prior to that, they did not know that they were nude. Prior to that, they did not know the difference between good and bad. But when they ate from tree of good and bad, something happened to their brain. The brain shrunk from 100% to 75%. The first damage that God gave, basically, to Adam, his own creation. So now they had to cover themselves with the leaves, and they were hiding. All of a sudden they fear. Prior to that, they didn't fear. They were in heaven. And still being in heaven, all of a sudden fear came upon them. And they all of a sudden realize they are nude. And being nude, oh my God, I have to be ashamed. So they covered themselves. That's why when God came, in the garden, he was there all the time. He asked, "Hey, Adam, where are you?" God knew where he was. God knew he was hiding. And Adam said, "I'm here." He said, "So why are you covering your peanuts?" And Adam told the story to God. And God was mad, basically. So, what God did, actually ordered and punished Adam to work all his life. That's first. Before that, it wasn't work. It wasn't social security, it wasn't government to pay him a pension. He didn't work, he didn't pay, so what? Before that, also, Adam was going to live like God forever. But the punishment of Adam was work to death, meaning he knew what his death was now, even though Adam lived about 900 something or 1,000 years old. 1,000 years he lived, but he knew that he's going to die. And what God punished Eve for, 9 months of carrying the baby and going through a pain of the birth. That was punishment of Eve. Prior to that, of course, they already have 2 children. They had Cain and Abel that they created. And they did not know what sex is, what making love is, they just automatically, probably the DNA of a human was to be attracted, man to woman. Not man to man and not woman to woman like these days. Woman was created from rib of Adam. God created him from rib of Adam back, basically. He's pulled off the rib and created Eve to have a partner, because to be alone is not good. So God knew what's good and what's bad, but human did not know. Now, the other damage that the other good thing that actually happened from eating tree of knowledge, good and bad, was the freedom of choice. Meaning, actually, prior to eating, God gave the freedom of choice to Adam. He told him what fruit to eat and what not to eat. And when Adam basically did not follow the order of God, meaning he basically lost part of his freedom. Now, freedom of choice given by God, the moment that he told him not to eat, that still exists in human brain till these days. Freedom. Freedom is the best and the most precious gift of God to human mind. He created such a computer that can think and can develop, can create sicknesses, can be sad, can be happy, can be exhausted, can be working like a dog, if dog ever work. Our brain is basically free to think. Now, can you imagine why I'm talking about free and freedom? Just to get to Corona. And what happened and what a human did to the gift, the most precious gift that God given to any, all animals basically. Animals have a freedom of choice too. But human brain is the main thing. So freedom, remember freedom. because we as Jews believe that when God created Adam, he created basically a computer that made of 248 parts, our body. This is our DNA. We have 248 moving parts of body. And in that body, we do have 365 veins and all this stuff that help the body to exist. Yes. And they're all connected in such a magnificent way that the computer on the top, the brain, basically give the order to the rest of the body or rest of the all our veins and all our muscles and bones where to move and how to survive. So by creating basically those parts in human body, that's the 248 moving parts basically. Among them, for example, we got our heart. He created heart, the main pump of existence. Excuse me. And the soul of a human being also was created. When human was created, the soul is our blood and the pump, our heart. Our heart is the soul. So I don't know how long this video is. I'm going to finish it now and going to go back to Corona. Just remember, this is a message also to black people. Black people, they lost their freedom when the other black people brought them from Africa to the United States and sold them. By selling a human, that God talks about it a lot in the Bible, because on those periods they were selling human. Basically, is freedom, meaning the precious gift that God gave it to them, to those human, was taken away from them, but by another human. Taking the freedom of a human is worse than killing him, because the freedom is his soul. The freedom is his brain. It's telling him what to do. The masters told the slaves what to do. Slaves were not allowed to do whatever they wanted because they were not free. They were enslaved. So their freedom of a choice and thinking was taken away from them. And when the human loses his freedom, his brain totally acting differently, because his computer is now shut down and is like a robot following whatever anybody else telling him to do. That's basically the story of Black American that went through slavery. By losing their freedom, they became what they are today. They are back under slavery by DNC, Democratic Party of the United States. If you guys following the news, just see what they're doing to get their votes. Blacks have 13% of the population of United States. If population of United States is 350 million, 13% is about 45 million people, blacks. So if you divide them, let's say 20 million children, you got 25 million men and women that are allowed to vote. So United States of America is based today and waiting today for a black vote that is taken away from them by one party. So that's losing the most precious gift of God, your freedom of choice. What God gave basically to Adam the second that he created him. He gave him freedom of choice. between tree of knowledge, good and bad, and tree of life. And therefore became connection now between tree of knowledge, good and bad, and tree of life. Because the amount of life that was given originally to human being was cut off, and the death came along. Now, getting back to the story, God also punished a snake and told him that he can not walk anymore, he just can crawl on the ground. He gave him the venom to beat the human on the heels, and also made him very colorful and attractive animal. That more colorful they got, the poison has become worsened. And that's the attraction of a man to a beautiful woman, based on deception of a beautiful snake that he or she did to Eve. Getting back to the story of Corona, when we follow Torah, we get into a point that God promised Abraham that his children going to be like sands on the ocean, like the stars in the skies, meaning going to be millions and billions, and that's what happened. We are 7.2 billion human after Noah. When God did not like his first creation and get rid of all of them at once, okay? And then the new generation of son of Noah. Okay, we Jews have to do 613 good deed every day. That's a lot of work. But kind of we grouped it to 3 times of praying. That's in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. On the name of Abraham in the morning, and Isaac in the afternoon, and and the mothers in the evening. In the evening, I apologize. Anyway, I'm mixing up some stuff. I don't want you to lose my point of Corona. Of course, God promised Abraham that his son going to be a slave for 400 years. And the slavery of the Jews started at the time of Jacob, when his son, Joseph, was deceived again by his brother. They threw him in the well, and they sold him to the Egyptian, and Joseph became a slave, basically, was bought by a master in Egypt, and he worked out in his house, was a beautiful, young, and gorgeous person, probably, very handsome. And the wife of the master tried to attack him. Again, here it comes deceiving. She tried, and he ran away. And for that, he was put in a jail because she lied. She said, "Oh, he tried to attack me, look." Because piece of a garment of his shirt was left on her hand when he ran away. So Joseph was in jail since he was 17 for 20 years almost. And the story said that there were 2 ministers, that they were in the same jail, and they had the same dream, and they came to Joseph next morning, and Joseph kind of solved their dream, and what Joseph said happened. One of the ministers within 3 days was hanged, and the other one got back his job, and he was the king winemaker. So after 20 years of being in jail, Pharaoh of Egypt dreamed, and no one could solve his dream. The minister that was freed and he was serving him, all of a sudden remember that Joseph, son of Jacob, solved his dreams, and his dreams came true. So right away they threw him out of jail and dressed him, and he's going to go see the Pharaoh, the king of the land. And Joseph became to Pharaoh, and he solved his dream too. And Pharaoh liked Joseph's dream and made him a king. He told him, actually gave him his ring, put it on his finger, and said, anything that you do is in my name, just don't take the chair from me. I'm still the Pharaoh. And Joseph said, I'm nothing, I'm just a server of God. God solved your dream, not me. And Joseph became a king, and of course, the dream was that 7 years is going to be good years, and 7 years after that is going to be hunger and drought and everything. And Jacob, his father, sent the 11 brothers, the 10 actually brothers. He kept the 11th one at home, the little one, to Egypt to bring food, and Joseph discovered them. He knew who they were and tricked them and a little bit kind of harassed them until, he said, okay, I'm your brother Joseph that I dreamt as a kid that I'm going to be king, and here God made me king of Egypt. And they ran to Jacob and all his children, total of 70 man, wife, and children, came to Egypt on the land of Goshen. And of course, when Joseph's life was over and a new Pharaoh came on, or same Pharaoh, never know if it was him or somebody else, that he did not know Joseph. And therefore, found incredible asset of workers that he could enslave them. So he created the slavery. And the Jews started 210 years of slavery. Slavery damages the brain of a human being because you've been told what to do, what to eat, what to dress, what to wear, where to sleep, how many hours you can sleep, how much food you can eat, when can you have sex, when you can have children, if you ever could have children. And so it's totally devastating any brain or any human. So, after 210 years, God appears to Moses in the desert through an angel or whatever, and tell him, go release my people, your people, from Egypt. Of course, we know the story of Moses, how it happened as a child, went to daughter of a king, took him as a kid and grew him up as a Harry, how do you call it, son of a king. He was his boy. That was her. She made him his boy, his son. And Moses ran away because at age 20 he saw Egyptian was hitting a Jewish guy, and he defended him, and he killed him and buried him, and the thing was known by Pharaoh, and Pharaoh wanted to kill him and ran away to a desert. And he got married and stayed there in the desert for 40 years, and after, when it was 80, God told him, go and free your people. So, the freedom for the Jews from slavery was the most essential and most greatest miracle that ever happened to nation of Israel. That's why we exist, because we still believe to the same God that freed us from slavery, gave us freedom to think, because freedom is the base of a human survivor. If we do not have a freedom, we look like dead, and we are dead. Slavery is a death sentence, basically. You're alive only to work, but basically your soul is dead. So God gave back the freedom to the Jews. That's why when we pray 3 times a day, we bring a lot of prayers all together. So 3 times a day we pray, we say from 613 good deed that we have to do, probably about 100 of them is in the, I don't know exact number of it, I should have known, but a lot of those prayers are considered to be 613 good deed that we have to do. So it's around 300 of them, let's say. And the rest of it is everything that we do. We have to pray. Like I drink this water now, and I have to say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nehiyeh bidbaro. I prayed, I elevated the water that God created. Therefore, now the water is kosher. Thank you. Anyway, so while I'm talking about freedom, let's go back now to what happened when Moses went to Egypt. When Moses went to Egypt, God told him, Moses said to God, I can't talk, God. Come on, I was stuttering. He said, don't worry about it. We're going to fix it. Aaron's going to talk about you. And we know the story about his stick, that he threw him out and became a snake, and all this stuff, all the miracles that happened. So Moses did a lot of attempt to free the slave, to free the Jews from the slavery, and Pharaoh became much stubborn and more stubborn every time. So what God used the nature to punish Pharaoh. And how he did it? With 10 plagues that he brought upon the Egyptian, plague after plague. And most of the plagues were usage of animals. Like when he sent, gosh, I forgot the name. I have to remember. I have to look at my Bible to remember. But you guys know, God basically ordered, let's say, how do you call it, the fly that flies on and eat all the grain. He brought up on Egyptian, and they finished all their trees and everything but left. And another plague was when he brought rain and what the hell is with ice, what do you call it, upon the Egyptian. A lot of plagues. God used nature and his animals to punish Egyptians. So comparing the plagues of God, now we're coming back to Corona. Look where Corona was created. In a land that they eat or fry live snakes, they eat any animal that crawls under the ocean that God said do not eat, they eat. That they deceive the world because they cheat and they spy and they thief, they steal technology, they steal knowledge. So the first corona comes out of China. China, the most dictatorship that ever existed. Look at the past of China. Mao killed about 70 million of his own people. So when they say there are only 2,800 dead in China from corona today, you know that they lied to you. Lied to themselves. They probably 28,000, or God knows 280,000 is much more than 282 or 283 deaths in China. Now, look how the corona actually, where it goes. Corona goes to Iran, another barbaric dictatorship regime that basically slaves his own citizen by the name of political Islam. And what I saw actually today in the TV, that, or a few days ago, that the same plague also went to Italy. And who is in Italy? Vatican. And who's sick? Pope. So there is a connection between corona virus and God and three locations on earth. China, the center of cheating, lying, taking freedom of human being, jailing million Muslims in ghettos, killing their own people. I saw a video that when the corona came, basically, the government was welding the doors of the people in their houses, meaning they couldn't get out to eat, they couldn't get out to shop, they couldn't get out to eat. So if one sick guy was among them, the whole family had to die. So how many apartments in one was locked? So people cannot get out. They died in their houses. So it's not 2,800, it's 280,000 or maybe a million or more, out of 11 million. Then it goes to Iran. Iran is occupied by a political Islam 1,398 years. Political Islam is also penetrated the United States by Barack Hussein Obama. Look, Barack Hussein Obama, what he did when he came to rule the United States. First of all, he was the best friend of Louis Farrakhan. Who is Louis Farrakhan? You guys go Google it. Jeremiah Wright, he was 20 years in his church. Barack Hussein Obama is a Muslim. Hussein is one of the prophets of son-in-law of Muhammad, their prophets. But he deceived Americans by telling them he's Christian. Of course, CNN never asked them. And the Jewish guy, what's his name? Larry King, that interviewed him, said, well, we don't know really if he's a Muslim, but who cares? Muslim or other human? No. Muslim of son of Israel is Ishmael. And they are cursed by God because they rejected God. And a third location is another center of the lie, the biggest lie in the world. And I apologize to all my Christian friends that I respect because they've been deceived too. The third location is Vatican, center of 2 billion human beings on this world. So there are three locations that are basically connected to a Bible and prophets of Daniel and Isaiah about what's going to happen when we are close to Messiah time, meaning being free from authoritarian regimes and system as Bernie Sanders was to create the United States. And who follows Bernie Sanders? Ilhan Omar and Linda Sarsour. And Sarsour in Arabic is not a good name. Sarsour is a pimp. So here is God trying now again his human that he created, and he brought a plague that's going to diminish one of the most aggressive barbarian regime in a communist country like China. God also going to diminish the Ayatollah regime in Iran. Look how many killing they did since 41 years ago when they basically made a revolution. Barack Hussein Obama did the revolution in Egypt. They call it Spring, what was the name? Revolution, Spring Revolution, that became very wintry. Spring Revolution of Barack Hussein Obama caused over 1 million people to die, 500,000 of them in Syria. Created over 7 million refugees around the world. But that was part of the plan, the civil plan of Barack Hussein Obama, to basically capture Europe. Today, Europe is almost half of it Muslim. In the United States, we do have congressmen and congresswomen that are followers of jihadist Barack Hussein Obama. So God has plans. Now, by Jewish belief, this generation of humanity would last 6,000 years. We are on the year of 5780, meaning another 220 years, like God created the earth and heaven, the seventh days comes along, meaning the 6,000 years is going to be end. Prior to end of the 6 days, or 6,000 years of this generation, Jews believe that the final freedom comes back, so human brain that was washed all these 6 years going to be cleansed, and we're all going to get to the level before Adam ate the fruit of tree of knowledge, good and bad. We call it Messiah time. Messiah time is now started, and God shows his strong arm and with his order how powerful he could be, because he could kill. God killed 6 million Jews because they were diverted from his order. Today, Jews are splitted. They are conservative that follow God's word by word. I'm one of them. I'm trying. It's very hard to be Jews. There are conservatives that kind of, let it go. Okay, I can drive in Sabbath and I can smoke on Sabbath, but that's okay, I'm still Jew. And there are Reformed that totally became Christian. They do not follow the law of the land. They do not follow the 613 deeds. They have music in Shabbat in their synagogue. So-called synagogue is basically a church. And those are people, those are the Jews that they are in a deep state because they following the order of a snake. They belong to the evil side of a human being. So unfortunately, or fortunately I would say, when the evil on land start ruling the earth, God become mad. And God send plagues like virus. Look what's happening. A little creature, the size of a virus could be 1.0001 millimeter size. God knows, maybe it's smaller. Totally destroying the economy of one of the greatest economy on the world, China. And going to affect the economy of the world because it's God's order. And God came back to bring justice on earth, to give us the total freedom to become part of him as Adam was prior to eating the fruit of the tree of knowledge, good and bad. Good night. And I hope my explanation is okay. I don't know. But I truly believe in it. This is a Messiah time. And upon his coming, there are going to be a lot of disasters around the world. The economies die. People go crazy, okay, until they come back and recognize the God that is only one that created human, not Jesus and not Muhammad. Fact, Jews do not know Moses' grave to this day. Why? Because God did not want his people to go and pray for Moses. Moses did tremendous miracles in this land. Tremendous. Yet, he was punished because he did not listen to the God order. And instead of talking to the stone to get water in the desert, he hit the stone. So God did not bring him to land of Israel. Now, talking about Israel, I'm going to tell you that probably the virus is going to come from their scientists. And I'm going to tell you probably the medicine comes to cure this virus too, hopefully one day. But probably going to be after a lot of bad people going to go. A lot of bad people that deceive the world and rebuke the order of God. My name is Hilik, and I hope to see you again.